Why building wealth in 5 years is so hard, 6 mistakes holding you back. I need you to pause for a second and think about this with me. Have you ever opened Instagram or TikTok and seen that 27-year-old guy claiming he went from zero and built a $500,000 net worth in just 5 years? You watched the whole thing, felt this weird mix of admiration and frustration, and then caught yourself wondering, why do I work so hard, try so hard, and my account always seems to be in the exact same place? If that sounds familiar, welcome to the club. And let me tell you something that probably nobody has told you yet. This is not a lack of effort on your part. This is the system working exactly the way it was designed. 5 years is a genuinely incredible window to build wealth. Mathematically, with consistency and the right strategy, you can completely transform your financial life in that time. But the brutal reality is that the vast majority of people reach year 5 in almost exactly the same position they were in year 1, or sometimes even worse off. And the reason isn't laziness. It isn't a lack of intelligence. It's that there are 6 specific traps working against you silently every single day. Some are behavioral. Some are systemic. And the most dangerous ones? They're the ones that look completely harmless, until you finally see the damage they've been doing all along. Today I'm going to walk you through every single one of them. And I'll warn you now, mistake number 3 is the one that keeps 90% of people who earn decent money from ever actually accelerating their wealth. And mistake number 6 is the most silent of all. It doesn't even look like a mistake. It looks like caution. But it's exactly the thing that pushes your 5-year timeline back by decades. If you stay until the end, I'll also give you a simple 3-step action plan to start reversing this today. Let's get into it. Lifestyle creep, the invisible trap. Do you remember the day you got your first real raise? That feeling of relief. Now I'll finally be able to save more. And do you know what happened in the 3 months that followed? Your expenses went up at exactly the same rate. This has a name, lifestyle creep. It's one of the most insidious mechanisms in personal finance psychology because it doesn't happen dramatically. It's not one big, obvious mistake. It's a sequence of small decisions that each seem completely reasonable, one at a time. You got a $400 per month raise. So you think, I can upgrade my phone plan, it's only $15 more a month. Fair enough. I can grab lunch somewhere nicer than that sad desk salad. Reasonable. I can finally lease a better car, the payment barely went up. Seems to make sense. 6 months later? You're spending $450 more per month than you were before, despite only getting a $400 raise. The amount left over to invest? 0. On a good day. Why does this happen? Because our brains are extraordinarily good at adapting to comfort. There's a psychological concept called the hedonic treadmill. The idea is simple. Every time you reach a new level of comfort, it quickly becomes your new normal. And then you need more to feel the same level of satisfaction. Add to that the social pressure. When your colleagues start upgrading their cars, taking international trips, and eating at better restaurants, there's an invisible force pulling you in the same direction. It's not vanity, it's social biology. We are comparison machines. Real-life example. Think about someone like Anna. She's 29, works as a marketing analyst, and over the past 3 years received 2 significant raises. Her income went from $3,800 to $6,100 a month. In theory, she should have a lot more money left over each month. In practice, she moved to a nicer apartment, added a gym membership, turned domestic trips into international ones, and upgraded her wardrobe. Today she saves exactly the same percentage she saved before, around 5%, because her spending grew in perfect lockstep with her income. 3 years of income growth. 0 acceleration in net worth. How to reverse it? The solution is not to live miserably or give up any quality of life. It's the opposite. The solution is to create an automatic rule before any raise even hits your account. It's called the pay yourself first rule with a fixed growth percentage. Every single time your income increases, you immediately commit at least 50% of that increase to investments or debt payoff, before you recalculate your spending budget. Here's how it works. You get a $400 raise. Before you even think about spending a cent more, $200 goes straight to your monthly investment contribution. The other $200? Now you can allocate that to improving your quality of life with full awareness. The secret is automation. Set up an automatic transfer to your investment account on the same day your paycheck hits. What you never see, you never spend. Sounds simple? It is. But 95% of people don't do it because they're waiting for money to be left over. And money never just sits there waiting to be saved. It always finds somewhere else to go first. Ignoring real inflation, the thief you can't see. Be honest with me for a second. Have you ever felt relieved to be investing in a high-yield savings account or a government bond that beats inflation? That comfort of knowing your money isn't just sitting idle? That relief might be costing you more than you think. There is a massive gap between official inflation, the CPI number the government publishes, and the real inflation you feel in your daily life. The CPI is an average. It factors in everything from bus fares to 65-inch TVs. But how much has your rent gone up in the last 3 years? What about your grocery bill? Your health insurance? If you live in any major city, the odds are that your real cost of living has risen significantly above the official inflation rate. And if your investment is returning 5% per year, but your real cost of living is climbing at 7%, you're not growing. You're shrinking. Just slowly enough that you can't feel it day to day. Why does this happen? Because we have a natural tendency to look at nominal numbers, that figure on your investment app creeping upward every month, and feel like we're making progress. $10,000 became $10,500. Great. But if maintaining the same standard of living now costs $10,700, you're actually $200 poorer than when you started. Economists call this money illusion, confusing nominal growth with real growth. Real-life example. Think about someone like Carlos. He has $50,000 saved in a conservative fixed-income investment returning around 4.5% annually. On paper, in 5 years that $50,000 becomes about $62,000. Carlos thinks he's getting ahead. But during that same period, his rent went up 8% a year, groceries 6%, and health insurance 7%. The real purchasing power of his $62,000 is far less than he imagined. He worked 5 years, did everything right, and effectively stood still. How to reverse it? First, stop using official CPI as your only benchmark. Build your personal inflation index. Look at your biggest expenses, housing, food, healthcare, transportation, and calculate how much they actually grew last year. That's the number you need to beat. Second, diversify into assets that have the potential to outpace real inflation. That includes equities, index funds, ETFs, REITs, in proportions that fit your risk profile and time horizon. I'm not telling you to put everything in the stock market. I'm saying that a 100% conservative portfolio in a world where real costs keep rising is a strategy for slow, invisible impoverishment. Fixed income has a place in your portfolio, but it should be the floor, not the ceiling. The single income trap, the mathematical ceiling of your salary. Here's an uncomfortable piece of math that nobody likes to hear. If you're relying exclusively on your salary to fund your monthly investments, you're building wealth with one hand tied behind your back. This isn't an opinion, it's arithmetic. Think about it, you have a fixed salary. After taxes, fixed expenses, and variable spending, you're left with a margin to invest. Let's say that's $600 a month. With that contribution and a 7% average annual return, reaching a $500,000 net worth will take you roughly 25 years. 25 years. Now imagine you build a second income stream, an extra $900 a month. Your total monthly contribution jumps to $1,500. With the same return rate, you hit the same goal in under 14 years. You just saved over a decade simply by adding a second source of income. This is what I call the single income trap. It's not that your salary is bad. It's that it has a ceiling. And when you're racing against a 5-year clock, that ceiling becomes your biggest obstacle. Why does this happen? Because the traditional job market was designed to be your only income source. And culturally, the idea of having a second job still carries a stigma of financial desperation. But that world has changed. The digital economy has created dozens of ways to generate supplemental income without abandoning your main career. There's also the exhaustion problem. Most people come home drained and the last thing they want is to work more hours. That's completely legitimate. But there's an important difference between working more hours and building assets that work for you. Real-life example. Think about someone like Julia. She's a teacher earning $3,200 take-home and manages to invest $500 a month. She knew that at that pace she'd never accelerate her wealth in 5 years. So she started teaching online tutoring sessions on weekends, an extra $900 a month. She directed $750 of that straight into investments. She tripled her monthly contribution without touching her weekday routine. In less than 3 years, she had double the projected net worth for that period. How to reverse it? Identify a skill you already have that other people would pay to learn or use. Consulting, freelancing, digital content, renting out a space or an asset, online teaching. It doesn't have to be huge. An extra $400 to $1,000 a month, directed entirely toward investments, can cut your 5-year timeline in half. And when that extra income arrives, apply the same rule from mistake number 1. 100% of it goes toward building wealth. You already live on your salary. The extra income doesn't exist for spending, it exists to buy your freedom. Instant gratification and the year 1 burnout. This one is the most human mistake of all. You start investing with full energy. You read about compound interest, ran the numbers, and were genuinely impressed by the long-term projections. You commit. Every month, without fail, you'll make the contribution. And then year 1 ends. You look at your portfolio and think, this is going nowhere. I worked an entire year and my net worth barely moved. And then the thought creeps in, what's the point of all this sacrifice if this is the result? This is where most people quietly give up. Not dramatically. They don't withdraw everything. They just stop contributing consistently. The $600 monthly contribution drops to $300. Then $100. Then it disappears for 2 or 3 months because something came up. Why does this happen? Compound interest follows an exponential growth curve, but the exciting part of that curve happens later, not at the beginning. In the first 2 or 3 years, growth feels absurdly slow compared to the effort you're putting in. Imagine you invest $1,000 a month at a 7% annual return. At the end of year 1, you have about $12,500. You put in $12,000 and your money generated roughly $500. It's genuinely hard to feel motivated by that. The problem is that our brains were built to seek immediate rewards. Waiting 5 years to see meaningful results goes against our mental wiring. This is called hyperbolic discounting. We value a reward right now far more than a larger reward in the future, even when the math clearly favors the future. Real-life example. Think about someone like Ryan. He started investing with full determination. Monthly contributions, weekly reading, updated spreadsheets. A year and 3 months in, during a tight month, he used his investment money to cover an expense that couldn't wait. The next month he made half a contribution. The month after, nothing. 6 months of gaps in a 5-year journey. When he recalculated what those 6 missed months cost him in projected net worth, it was over $30,000 in long-term wealth. All for a temporary feeling of, this isn't working. How to reverse it? 2 paths. First, change your success metric for the early years. Instead of looking at your balance, look at the habit. Did I contribute every month? That is the year 1 win, not the return. The meaningful returns come later. The habit has to come first. Second, build a system that protects you from yourself. Automate contributions to go out the same day your paycheck arrives. Build a separate emergency fund so that unexpected expenses never cannibalize your investments. And every now and then, project on paper where you'll be in 10 years if you keep going. That visualization exercise has enormous motivational power. Compound interest isn't magic. It's math. And the math works, but only for people who don't quit before it shows up. Debt opportunity cost, the hidden price of installments. Did you know that your car payment, your phone on a 24-month installment plan, or your credit card balance isn't just costing you money today? It's stealing your future investment power? This is what we call the opportunity cost of debt, and it's one of the most underestimated concepts in personal finance. The logic is straightforward. Every dollar you commit to a monthly payment is a dollar that doesn't go into your investment portfolio. And when you factor in the return that dollar would have generated over 5 years, the true cost of a debt is far higher than what appears in the contract. Simple example. You finance a $2,000 purchase over 18 months at $125 per month. You end up paying around $2,250 total, $250 in interest. But if you had those $125 a month invested at a 7% annual return over the same period, you would have built nearly $2,600 in additional wealth. The real cost of that installment purchase wasn't $250 in interest. It was $2,600 in wealth that never got to exist. Why does this happen? Because installment plans were specifically designed to anesthetize your perception of cost. When you split $2,000 into 18 payments, your brain doesn't process $2,000, it processes $125. And $125 a month feels reasonable for almost anything. Financial institutions know this. The interest-free installment plan, the pre-approved credit offer, the just one more month framing, these are all mechanisms engineered to maximize consumption and minimize your awareness of the real impact. Real-life example. Think about someone like Fernanda. She's 32, earns $5,000 a month, and has never thought of herself as in debt because she always pays on time. But when she sat down and listed all her active installment payments, phone, laptop, furniture, 2 appliances, she discovered that $1,400 of her monthly income goes straight to payments. That's 28% of her take-home pay committed to past consumption. What could she have invested with $1,400 a month over 5 years at a 7% return? Over $100,000. She doesn't feel indebted. But mathematically, she's mortgaging her future every single month. How to reverse it? First, do a complete payment audit today. Add it all up. The number will probably surprise you. Second, establish a personal purchase policy. Before buying anything on installments, ask yourself, do I have the full amount right now? If not, do I actually need this today? If the answer to both is no, the purchase waits. Third, use the debt avalanche strategy. Pay off your highest interest debt first, free up that cash flow, and immediately redirect the freed amount into investments. Every payment you eliminate is an investment contribution you've earned back. Good debt exists, debt that generates assets or increases your earning capacity. Consumer debt is the reverse engine of wealth building. Risk aversion and financial illiteracy, the paralysis that looks like prudence. This is the most silent mistake, and the most treacherous, because it doesn't look like a mistake at all. It looks like responsibility. I don't put money in the stock market because it's risky. I'd rather keep it in a savings account, at least I won't lose anything. Stocks are for people who understand this stuff. I don't know enough. If any of those thoughts have crossed your mind, you're not alone. A huge portion of the population keeps their wealth in savings accounts or conservative low-yield products, and genuinely believes they're doing the right thing. But here's the truth nobody tells you. The risk of taking no risk at all is the biggest risk of them all, especially for someone in the early stages of building wealth. Let's look at numbers. A typical high-yield savings account in the current environment might yield around 4 to 5%. Meanwhile, the S&P 500 has returned an average of roughly 10% per year over the past century, with significant short-term volatility, but impressive long-term growth. The gap between a fully conservative portfolio and a diversified one with an equity component, over 5 to 10 years, can be tens or even hundreds of thousands of dollars. That is the cost of paralysis. Why does this happen? Loss aversion, a concept popularized by economist Daniel Kahneman, shows that humans feel the pain of a loss approximately twice as intensely as the pleasure of an equivalent gain. In practical terms, losing $1,000 hurts far more than gaining $1,000 feels good. This makes us naturally conservative. And when you add a lack of financial education, which most school systems simply don't provide, the result is a population that's afraid to invest because they don't understand what they're doing. And what we don't understand, we avoid. Real-life example. Think about someone like Paul. He's 35, has $80,000 saved, and 100% of it sits in a savings account. He watches the stock market from a distance with suspicion. One day it'll all crash and I'll lose everything. Meanwhile, a colleague with the same salary who distributed his portfolio across index funds, REITs, and bonds has seen his net worth grow significantly faster over the same period, with volatility along the way, but a far stronger long-term trajectory. Paul protected his wealth, but he protected it against short-term risk at the cost of long-term growth. How to reverse it? First, invest in financial education. You don't need an MBA. There are accessible books, channels like this one, and free resources that give you more than enough to start investing with real awareness. Second, start small. You don't need to put 50% of your portfolio into stocks tomorrow. Start with 10, 15, or 20% in diversified equity. Index ETFs are a great entry point because they offer built-in diversification and low cost. Increase gradually as your knowledge and comfort grow. Third, change the question. Instead of asking, is this risky? Ask, what's the risk of doing nothing? When you put both sides of the equation on the table, inaction almost never wins. The fear of losing is legitimate. But letting it paralyze you for 5, 10, or 20 years has a cost. It just won't appear dramatically. It'll appear slowly in the gap between the net worth you have and the one you could have had. The 5-year action plan. Alright. Let's close this out practically. If you've made it this far, you already know that building wealth in 5 years isn't about finding the perfect investment or getting lucky. It's about plugging the leaks. Every one of the 6 mistakes we covered today is a hole in your financial bucket. You can be pouring money in with contributions every month, but if those holes stay open, the water will never accumulate the way it should. So here is your 3-step action plan to start today, not next week. Today. Step 1, the honest diagnosis. Set aside 30 minutes today and do a complete financial audit. How much you spend, how much you earn, what installment payments you have active, what your money is currently earning, and where it's actually invested. Without this diagnosis, any strategy is just guesswork. Most people have never done this completely and honestly. Be different. Step 2, plug your biggest leak first. Of the 6 mistakes we discussed, one of them probably jumped out at you while you were watching. Maybe it's the lifestyle creep. Maybe it's the pile of monthly payments. Maybe it's the fear of leaving your savings account. Pick your biggest leak and attack it first. Fix one problem at a time. Personal finances don't improve when you try to fix everything at once. They improve when you close one hole, see the result, and move on to the next. Step 3, automate and forget. Set up your investment contribution to go out automatically on the same day your paycheck arrives. Decide what percentage goes to investments before that money ever touches your spending account. Remove the decision from the equation entirely. Because every time you rely on willpower to invest, you're betting against your own psychology. Automate the right behavior and let the system work for you. 5 years is enough time to completely change your financial trajectory. But only if you stop working against yourself. Wealth isn't built through dramatic, sweeping moves. It's built through small, consistent decisions repeated over time, while the mistakes we talked about today are under control. You don't need to be the smartest person in the room. You don't need to out-earn everyone around you. You need to be more consistent than the version of you that existed before this video. If any of this resonated with you, do me a favor. Drop a comment below and tell me which of the 6 mistakes hit closest to home. It helps me understand what to go deeper on in future videos, and you'll be surprised how many people are in the exact same boat. Subscribe if you haven't already. New content every week, no fluff, no get-rich-quick promises. Just what actually works. See you in the next one.